Welcome everyone. It's great to be with you today. My name is Catherine and I'm a manager in the knowledge and technical team here at A4S. So in today's session, we'll be sharing some practical insights on how to embed sustainability factors within management information, providing a more integrated approach. So please note that we'll be recording the webinar for others and it will be made available on our YouTube channel in about a month's time. So there are 3 learning objectives for this webinar, which I will just briefly summarize now. So firstly, to articulate the tangible business advantages of bringing sustainability metrics into management information systems, to understand the steps involved in developing and implementing an integrated management information framework, and finally, to apply the real-world experiences and examples shared by our speakers today to your own organization. So the webinar will last around an hour, and we're going to first start by providing a brief overview of the integrated approach to management information, followed by a presentation from Marcel van Lankveld from DHL Supply Chain. We will then turn to Omar Hanif from Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, who will share his experiences and practical insights in the integration of sustainability factors. There will be some time for Q&A at the end, so please do drop your questions in the chat function and we will do our best to answer them. We are also joined by our co-host Yvette, a consultant in the knowledge and technical team here at A4S. And Yvette will be leading the discussion with our guest speakers and will host our audience Q&A session later in the webinar. So integrating sustainability factors into management information processes will ensure your organisation can capture what's important to stakeholders, provide insights to decision makers, and safeguard financial performance for the present and the future. And finance teams have an essential role to play in supporting and developing the integrated management information systems due to their knowledge of the wider business strategy and how the selection of relevant KPIs is essential to monitoring performance. They can support in discussions around value creation and how to consider social and environmental factors alongside financial information. So financial teams can also support with how to communicate the data and information to the decision makers that will help to drive value creation and support the effective decision making. So what are the steps for developing an integrated management information framework? Well, I'll provide a brief overview of the steps to take based upon the guidance that we provide in the A4S Essential Guide to Management Information, the link of which will be provided later on in the session. So the first step is to evaluate the business strategy and outlook. So this will mean aligning the MI framework to the organisation's strategic objectives and include a more forward-looking view of performance. Secondly, you should analyse the business model and value creation process. So all business models create and destroy value. So what's important is to sort of understand where and how the creation and destruction is happening. And by understanding these interactions, the MI framework can support your organisation in really enhancing and maximising this value. The third step is to define information requirements of users. So identify the information that's required for both internal users and external stakeholders to make sure that the data that you get is both relevant and useful. So this is largely driven by materiality considerations, and it is down to the preparer's judgment on which information is relevant for the decisions made by each user. The fourth step is to identify the relevant standards and define the principles. So identifying these can be used to define key performance measures so that the MI framework will deliver reliable, consistent, and comparable information over time, which is key in making informed decisions. The penultimate step is to agree key performance measures, targets, and understand how these are connected in order to deliver a more holistic approach in demonstrating the interrelated factors that impact value creation. And the last step is to monitor this on an ongoing basis so that the right information can be delivered at the right time to drive decision-making and action. So I would definitely recommend reading the A4S Essential Guide to Management Information, as there are lots of practical examples which can help to explain the steps for integration. And this should be shared in the chat funnel now. So when thinking about where sustainability information sits, it typically is located outside of the ERP or financial reporting system. And this often means it's not subject to the same internal controls which support financial information. which may result in poorly controlled information upon which decision makers can't rely. So to improve the credibility of sustainability information for both management information and reporting purposes, an integrated approach should be used to the internal control environment. Sustainability reporting needs to be thoroughly integrated into a business strategy and operational practices, which in turn will drive decisions that create value in to the business and its stakeholders. Sustainability information can also be quite hard to control for many reasons. So quite often the factors considered in sustainability information are less well known to those responsible for the controls. Many of the sustainability factors require quite complex methodologies to quantify, and it may not even be appropriate to quantify them. And information within the wider value chain should also be considered. So the control environment needs to reach beyond the boundaries of the organization. So the key to developing successful integrated management information is to adapt and update the existing processes rather than building new processes from the ground up. So organizations should leverage expertise within the existing risk management team to implement processes and controls that ensure a more robust internal control environment. So one such example of this is the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, or COSO approach, which many of you may have heard of already, and is one of the most widely used models for designing and evaluating internal controls. And in March 2023, COSO extended its renowned internal control integrated framework to encompass sustainability reporting. Now, we don't have time to go through all of the components of this, but just to summarize these quickly below, these are the 5 key components: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities. I would definitely recommend taking a look at the COSO framework on internal control over sustainability reporting, which sort of aims to bolster the reliability and comprehensiveness of sustainability disclosures, ensuring they are on par with financial reporting. So I will now introduce our guests for today's webinar, Marcel and Omar. So Marcel is the head of ESG and carbon accounting at DHL Supply Chain. Marcel is part of the DHL Global Finance Controlling and Accounting team and is responsible for the governance around sustainability reporting and carbon accounting, the integration of sustainability KPIs, and the implementation of accounting processes for ESG KPI reporting. So Marcel was part of the 2023-2024 A4S Academy cohort, where his implementation plan focused on the integration of EU taxonomy reporting into the monthly reporting cycle and into the CapEx appraisal process. Omar is the Director of Sustainability Reporting and Analytics at Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan. Omar is responsible for leading the measurement of OTPP sustainability initiatives, including portfolio carbon footprint and operational carbon footprint, monitoring new sustainability regulations, and performing analytics to drive insights. Omar was also part of the 2023-24 A4S Academy cohort, where his implementation plan focused on the alignment of reporting to the IFRS S1 and S2 disclosure standards and the development of the portfolio carbon footprint analytics used to better understand the drivers of change. So a very warm welcome to you both. So I will now hand over to Marcel, who will provide some insights into the work being done at DHL Supply Chain on integrating sustainability data and metrics into management information and the benefits that this has for decision making. So over to you, Marcel.
Thank you very much. Warm welcome, everybody. Yes, if you can go to the... Yes, thank you very much. Okay, you can all hear me very well, I hope. Catherine, if you can say yes. Just a quick, I only have 15 minutes, and I think I can talk for hours about ESG and implementation and management information. Just as I think everybody knows DHL, but just to set the scene, we are the DHL Group, the world leaders logistic provider, and we are operating in 220 countries, and we have 5 divisions. So these are the numbers from 2023. The number for 2024 will be shortly presented. If you look at all the divisions that we have, if you go to the left, so Express, Global Forwarding, Freight, Supply Chain. So I'm working for Supply Chain. It's the customized warehousing and transport and value-added services. We also have e-commerce and post and parcel. It's just to set the scene about how how complex and big our company is, where it's crucial to have the correct management information about financials, but also about non-financials. Just if you can go to the next one. I think the deck will also be shared with all the participants, and there's also a link to our sustainability roadmap. If you look at what we have done, it is not new for us to report on ESG. We already report carbon emissions for more than 18 years. And we made a really sustainability ESG promise. So if you look at E, S, and G, we have really clearly defined KPIs, where we already had some KPIs in a lot of areas, in performance dialogues, where we have now concatenated them all under the ESG flag. So we want to be the front runner in the low carbon logistics, best green commercial offering, and trust and effective green solutions. For social, safe and healthy workplace, inclusive high performance culture, we want to be the best team and great colleagues, but also accelerated profitable growth, reliable and resilient execution, and attractive shareholder returns. You can go to the next one, Jess. Thank you. So, but all the data, all the performance dialogues, all the data that we are collecting, how can we get that into management information? So we say in DHL that we need to treat non-financials equally as financials. So finance is in the lead, but finance is not doing it on their own. It's really a joint effort between all the functions. So what we have set up is really a framework, how to implement this in our information system. So we set clear targets, we define the processes, we have a lot of data in a data lake, and we have a lot of technology. We need to have the governance around, but also there's culture and change that you need to implement before you can have ESG in your management information systems. If you look at the targets on the next slide, you can then also see, so these are, and this is not a secret, this is where we're very open in, these are some of our clearly defined targets. So in the E, S, and G component, we have made clear targets for ourselves where we need to commit to. And I think that is the base for your management information, the same as you do with your financials, non-financials also. You need to define clear targets. Those clear targets are then also defined in the process on the next step. So again, I'm not going through all of the ESG targets that we have set as the DHL group. If you go to the next slide, we also have a clear process defined how we can get these targets into management information. But it's not only finance, it's really finance is driving, but it's a full cross-functional process. We cannot implement this as finance. So what we have done, we have for every ESG KPI a topic owner, reporting owner, and a system or dashboard owner. They need to work together to get the information in. If you look at the bottom, the corporate definition on the KPI, we need to have a definition and a request. If there is a new KPI, can come from an CSRD, ESRS reporting requirement, or an internal performance KPI. We always try to link them to each other, but it can be that there is an operational performance KPI that we want to implement. That starts with ESG, finance, or a function. Then we need to do a high-level assessment with the reporting owner. Okay, what kind of data is available and how can we get this reported? Then at step 3, we do an in-depth assessment on what do we have available, and we develop a KPI blueprint. So we develop together with the topic owner, how can we report this KPI going forward? And then the connection with all the data that we have and the dashboards that we are having and the systems that we're using, we also need to also ensure that we can get the data out so that we can get the data reported in our management information systems as we would like to. And then last step, we should not forget that this always needs to have training. We need to test it. We have a go live, we have a review, and also we do some data checks to really review the process on the implementation and do we have the correct management information in our system. If you then look at the next slide to the data and technology. Yeah, I also discussed later the internal control framework. We already had a tool called DPM, so Divisional Performance Management Tool, where we do not only show the financials, but also operational data. We use this tool to enhance with ESG data. So in the same review process, we said we want to have in this dashboard also ESG KPIs. What we did, and I also strongly recommend everybody who's going to implement ESG in your information systems, start small. So what we did is we started with steering relevant KPIs. We started with 65 KPIs. At a certain moment, we had 100 KPIs also to meet the ESRS reporting requirements, where we do all report upon. But initially, we started smaller and with a phase 1 implementation on steering relevant KPIs. Also, those KPIs are steering relevant, which means they're also part of the bonus of our board members. So we really ensure that when you implement ESG in your management information system, that they can be discussed in the same flow as your financials and other performance indicators, but also that people are aware and that they also, it's part of their business scheme. So these are example numbers. I cannot share the official numbers from the DHL group or DHL supply chain, but in our sustainability report, you can also see all our greenhouse gas emissions, realized decarbonization effects, etc., etc. So we have a huge data lake that we used, and with the structured approach from the previous page, we connected every function who is involved. So it's clearly that finance is not defining the entire process. Finance is supporting, and finance has a crucial role in the sustainability programs to support this. But you cannot do this on your own. It's not only finance, everybody is involved. And if you have everybody involved, you will get that cultural change that I will talk later too. So here, this is discussed every month on country level with the CFO, with the COO, with the CCO. So this is discussed with everybody. You can see the trends, you can see the single month reporting, year-to-date reporting, but also the forecast. So this is not only for the information that we do, because we have a budget and planning process with the actual numbers, but also including the forecast numbers for the entire year, to be able to manage and steer based upon this information. So if we are down, for example, with one of the, or we have too much emissions, for example, that we can take also actions in the correct way so that we can see them reflected in the next month. What we also had here to make this really user-friendly is we have also on the right corner some commentaries. So you can enter your commentaries every 5 minutes. These will be updated. So this is part of the monthly reporting process, where you can then also add your commentary, where also all the people can see, okay, what happened, why are we above or below plan, and what are the corrective actions. We can filter on country, we can filter on region, etc., the same as we do with the other reviews in the same tool. If you then go to the governance page, because you can implement a management information system, but you need to have everybody connected. So what we have done is that our ESG agenda is pretty strong within the entire DHL group. So every function, you can see that here, this is also in our roadmap, is that and we have a sustainability steering board, but an operational board. So in every board you can see here on screen, ESG is on the agenda. ESG is part of everybody's life and everybody's targets. So we have several working groups also defined to ensure that the reporting will be in place. So this is also on group level, and if you then see below, this is also available in every division that I have talked through on page 2. So this is also coming from the top, and this is the same as we do with the other management information system. If you go to the next one, implementation of any management information, it doesn't matter if it's finance or not, it needs to have a culture and change management. It's a very important part of your implementation. We say it's always, it is everything. You need to have clear communication. You need to have clear processes defined, SOPs, work instructions, and you need to do your stakeholder engagement. Training and education is a very crucial part to also ensure that everybody is understanding and also following, and it will be part of the monthly process. What we do in a lot of the projects is we also assign change leaders and agents people who support with the change that you're implementing to ensure that the information, the management information system that you're providing is also shared. We also need to be that everybody is ready for the change, and there's always resistance when you do a change, but you also need to have the story. What you should not forget is continuous improvement, because if you have implemented the best reporting for your management information, you always need to challenge yourself and say, hey, what can we improve based upon feedback that is also coming from countries and regions? Go to the next slide. So if you want to implement management information related to sustainability, so ESG, we strongly suggest that, or what we did in the DHL group, is that you integrate operational data with financials. So we treat non-financials equally as financials. And I think that is a very strong story, and it helped us very much to use. Use what you already have available, like the tool we have, the DPM tool. What is also very important is you understand your data and to have an end-to-end process, because also in DHL you have different systems, and if you have every function involved, get people involved and understand the data. Where is it coming from? Are we all looking to the same data? What I also said before, start smaller, so create also a midterm and a long-term view. If you would put the bar very, very high and have a very complex overview of reporting, management information systems, and all the details, you might not reach the target. Start smaller and grow bigger. Yeah, and find a common denominator for variances. So if there are variances, and there will be variances, find a common denominator. What is also crucial is define and review measures which create an impact. Look not only at the smaller one, but look at the really the big ones. You need to create a transparency at the level where you also can measure. Define your clear targets and measure performance. I think everybody will measure performance. We already do this since a very long time in a lot of areas, and this also helped us to build this into the management information systems. Define clear owners and related responsibilities. In the A4S program, I learned that finance is really playing a crucial role in the sustainability agenda. But you have also other functions that will be an owner. Manage them and steer them. Communicate, but also give the ownership to other people and involve them. That's how you can implement. Deliver governance and change management. I also work in the internal controls. The governance is a really, really important part when you have management information where you make upon decisions. So ensure that the data is there and that's correct. Communicate and educate and shape also behaviors. What to do when there is an impact, or what to do when somebody has not reported, etc. Create communities with posters, but also get people involved. And what we strongly believe is that you need to embed ESG KPIs, even if they're legally or your own performance KPIs, into the usual business review processes. But also listen to your customer, and that can be an internal customer. Listen to your customers. That is how we were able to implement the ESG KPIs into our management information, and it's now part of our review process on a monthly basis. We started with a phase 2. We are now heading to the phase 2. We started with phase 1. We're now heading with the phase 2, and we're going to enhance because we have a good foundation for our review process. Yeah, I haven't. So I'm not sure if there are already questions raised in the chat, yeah, we say, and I cannot repeat it enough. ESG data is as important as financial data, which evaluates all the data across multiple layers of the organization within the same platform, and we ensure that we have insights to drive better and more informed decisions.
Thank you, Marcel. I think we do have some questions, but we're going to hold those for our Q&A session, which we're going to get to after we've also heard from Omar. But I think we really appreciate the sort of practical recommendations and insights you've shared with us, and things like culture and change that you sometimes overlook when you're putting these sort of processes into place. So Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we have some questions, but like I say, we'll hold those over till we've heard from Omar. So let's move on to our discussion with Omar. And he's going to be giving us an insight into how the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, so a bit of a different type of organization, and how they've integrated sustainability factors into their management information and reporting. So welcome, Omar, and thanks for being with us today. We're going to do a slightly different format now, and I'm going to pose a few questions for you and look forward to hearing your insights. So I think just to get started, why did OTPP decide to integrate sustainability information into your portfolio monitoring and of course your investment activities?
Yeah, so happy to start with that question. And before I actually provide the answer, I think it would help to provide some context to our organization and how we're structured. So we are a pension plan, so we do invest into several different companies across different asset classes. So, you know, we invest into public equity, public and private debt, into private funds, you know, direct private investments as well, and also derivatives and other sorts of securities. So it really covers a wide variety of different types of investments. So in terms of our decision to integrate sustainability information into our portfolio monitoring and investing activities, we do feel that, you know, the effective integration of sustainability information is a critical component of our portfolio monitoring and investment activities. We consider material ESG risks to be material financial risks, you know, as they do directly impact the financial performance in our view. And this is particularly true when you consider all of the extreme weather events that are more frequently taking place globally, which is having a significant impact on the communities that they impact and also on the businesses operating in those communities. So when you look at our sustainable investing principles, and they are on the website as well, they are designed to identify and manage important ESG risks and opportunities across our portfolio. And this approach ensures that we make informed investment decisions that contribute to long-term returns and balance both financial performance and sustainability. And the last thing I would add there is that we have publicly committed to making an impact as an investor, owner, and employer, as we believe that this is aligned to creating value. And so the integration of sustainability information into our portfolio monitoring and investment activities is definitely one way to do that.
Thanks, Omar. So I think it's clear that it's important with the objectives and the public commitment that you've set. So I'm just wondering, what sort of metrics or key sustainability metrics are you then tracking across this portfolio? And so how does that align with your strategy and your ability to assess impact around those?
Yeah, so we have quite a few different programs, particularly in our, you know, if you look at the ESG buckets under the environment space, which I can share on. So first, we do monitor our green assets within our investment portfolio, which is based on certain criteria when determining if an investment can be considered green. You know, you could look at revenues, you could look at business activities, and so on. And then secondly, we have our green bond program where funds received are earmarked for green investments. And, you know, we would be looking to global principles like the ICMA principles there when as part of our green bond program. And then third, this is getting more into a bit of an active management where we have our PART program. So this is our Paris Aligned Reduction Target program, where we work directly with certain of our portfolio companies to help them develop a credible decarbonization plan. And then from there to help them monitor and track that they're following the plan that was set. And then last, we do track and monitor our portfolio carbon footprint. So these metrics align well with our strategy to make a real world positive and measurable impact. And we view these programs as ways to advance environmental action through the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and also to mitigate the impacts of climate change.
So pretty much focused on carbon and climate change areas, but I think from what I understand that will be expanded upon in due course. So I think just to hear a little more from you, you obviously have set these metrics and you have your clear reasons as to why, and it's linked to your strategy. So what sort of systems do you have in place to track and monitor your performance now in light of these targets and these metrics that you're wanting to track? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, and I think also given the time that we have, I probably will do a deeper dive into our portfolio carbon footprint reporting and the tracking and monitoring that we do there, as that is an area that my team focuses heavily on. So going forward, I'll refer to that as PCF, so it stands for portfolio carbon footprint. So initially, and I'll provide a bit of a history as well as part of this discussion. So initially, our PCF was being calculated annually by our sustainable investing team. So it actually wasn't finance that was calculating it. It was a different team within the organization. They had some help from finance, but it was largely a calculation that they were doing. So a few years ago in 2022, actually, the decision was made at the executive level to build out a sustainability reporting and analytics team within finance. So that would be my team. And one of our first mandates was actually to take over the measurement and tracking of our PCF. And by doing this, for the finance team to take over the measurement and tracking, it allowed for a few things. So first, our team was able to leverage our knowledge and processes around controls and processes, and further mature the processes that were in place for PCF around data collection and measurement. Just given that some of this knowledge may be intuitive to people within finance, but they may not be the same case for other teams that we found. As well, we implemented controls and actually put a structure in place around the data collection and measurement efforts. And so all of this led to improved external reporting, both from a data quality perspective and also a timing perspective, since we were now able to measure and report on our annual PCF number much earlier than before. So I think in the past, it would take roughly 4 to 5 months after year end, and our year end was December 31st to calculate that number. But now we're doing that within a month or a month and a half tops, right? So we were able to streamline that process a lot more. And in addition to that, our team actually worked to automate certain data collection aspects of the PCF and present this data in a Power BI dashboard. So by introducing those automation and efficiencies, we were able to actually internally measure and report on our PCF on a monthly basis. So again, before we were really measuring this on an annual basis, but now we're measuring it on a monthly basis, given that automation and the efficiencies we brought in. And our Power BI dashboard really helps to provide an easy visualization of the data. The dashboard also presents the data at various levels, including the OTPP level, the department level, and it goes all the way down to the investment level. So similar to what Marcel was presenting, with his data, you're able to look at it at different, levels, different countries and regions. We're able to do something similar in our dashboard. And so this has greatly helped the organization in being able to track performance against our targets on a practically somewhat real-time basis. I wouldn't say fully real-time since it's not a daily update, but it is a monthly update. So we're able to see it a lot earlier. And in addition to that, we also actually developed a sensitivity tool where investment teams are able to assess the impact of potential investment decisions on the PCF. So given what we've done with the data, how we've automated it and brought it in, we can now do this additional sensitivity. So combined with the higher frequency of reporting PCF internally, and also being able to do the sensitivity, investment teams are now able to make better investment decisions, and the organization is actually able to improve our risk management practices as a result of that.
Thank you. And I think that's what it's all about. We always say information enables decision making. So it's good to hear that's sort of happening on the ground within your organization. And yeah, as you mentioned, a bit of a trend forming in terms of the role of technology and the dashboards to help with tracking. And also you started talking about, other teams and that are actually involved to make this all happen. So I just want to go a little bit into that and just understand the importance of cross-functional collaboration in terms of implementing this project, and then also how you're looking at new areas going forward, and also the role of this collaboration to get you there.
Yeah, and again, I'll draw on what Marcel mentioned in his presentation. We view finance to be a support function in many ways, and a lot of this may be actually originating or owned by other teams as well. So definitely cross-functional collaboration, it was very critical to the implementation of our PCF measurement project. It's a bit of a history. So before our involvement, even our sustainable investing team, they were the ones to actually have to obtain the buy-in from the relevant stakeholders on measuring and tracking our PCF. Again, I'm focusing specifically on PCF in the interest of time and not going into the other programs. But once that was obtained, as an organization, a methodology had to be established on how to actually measure the PCF, and targets had to be determined. And in addition to external targets that we have publicly disclosed, there's annual internal reduction targets that were set for investment teams, and investment teams are held accountable to these targets. So there was a lot of discussions that had to take place between the sustainable investing team, the investment teams, and obviously all of the executive sponsors that are part of the process too. And beyond that, looking more into the current space, our team within finance, we're collaborating since we took over a lot of that measurement aspect and tracking. We're practically collaborating on a daily basis with our sustainable investing team. We had to work closely with them when we were transitioning a lot of the measurement aspects to our team, and we continue to work closely with them today, given that the way the roles work, they own the methodology and we own the data collection and measurement. So we're often having discussions around all of those aspects. And we're also working very closely with our investment teams, given that obviously they are very much interested in where the results are coming out. And so that's another team that we're working with. And finally, we're working very closely with our IT team, since they helped us build out this tool to automate our processes. So we're actually regularly meeting with them almost every other week to talk through any issues in the tool or any further enhancements that we want to make to our tool, and so on. So yeah, definitely cross collaboration is extremely important, and it requires the collaboration of more than just one or two teams. It almost covers the whole organization when you think about it.
Makes me think. I'm sure that didn't come without its challenges to get everyone onto the same page. It makes me think of that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I'm sure it does take some time to get that right, but it does pay off in terms of the benefit it brings.
And I would add to that, I think
yeah.
the key there to be able to get all the teams talking is really that support from the top down. So to have the executive team be that support and provide that voice helps a lot.
Thanks, I think that's very, very useful. I think just as a last question before we move into the Q&A, you started talking about controls and their importance a bit earlier on. So I just want to, and Marcel, of course, also highlighted the importance of that. So just some more insight into how you've taken, what measures you've sort of put into place to look at the reliability and accuracy of this data that you're working with.
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways we can approach that question. So first, at a high level, as I mentioned before, yes, we help to mature our processes around the data collection and measurement. And we implemented in internal controls as well to ensure that there's appropriate review being done. But in addition to our own processes, we also have an internal audit team within the organization, and they also reviewed our controls just last year. And they brought in their expertise and provided us with valuable guidance in terms of where there's areas for improvement and so on. And we also do, for our PCF numbers, we do get an annual limited assurance from an external advisor as well. So, but specifically with our internal processes, just diving into some of the practical nature, like we, in a lot of our processes, we've introduced a 4 eyes review process. So, we have somebody who's preparing the information or preparing the data, and we have a different person who's reviewing the data. And in certain points throughout the process, we actually have a second reviewer, depending on the criticality of the process. Particularly, for example, in the very end, when the final results are viewed, we would have a second reviewer just to make sure that those results make sense and there's nothing that looks unusual there. But in addition to our own team, the sustainable investing team are also looking at the data. They're often on a monthly basis taking a look at the results, and they may have certain information that they're aware of that we're not aware of. And so if they see something odd, they'll flag that to us. So we're able to capture that. The investment teams also, given that they're very much vested in what the results look like, they're also looking at the data and they're raising any flags if they see any. From a automation perspective, we have system controls that are in place. So when we built out the tool, we built that out with controls in mind, making sure the appropriate users have access to the data and to the tool, and that not everybody in the organization can access and change the data. And things like that. And then I know, Catherine, you mentioned the ICSR, so the Internal Controls Over Sustainability Reporting Framework. We've actually looked to that for guidance, particularly when we think about our control environment and how we want to make sure that we shape that appropriately so that it's robust for our processes.
Thank you, Lankveld. It's very, very useful, very insightful, Omar. And I think, again, also very grateful for you sharing the journey, and it translates into some great practical sort of considerations that our participants can sort of take away with them and see how they could put it into practice within their own environment. So thank you really much a lot for sharing your journey in this regard. And I know you've pointed to the Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials, PCAF, information for the participants to also have a look at for some further insights and information. So yeah, thank you to both of our speakers so far. What we'd like to do now is we're just going to, I'm going to go to the question and answer panel. I'm going to start with you, Marcel. I've got two that related to your presentation, and then I'm going to come back to you, Omar, with some questions that I have as well. So Marcel, supporting functions may not be as used to compiling information in terms of accuracy deadlines that finance is used to. So how would you manage the supporting functions that don't supply finance with information on time? So obviously you're reliant on them. How would you deal with that and to not affect your process too much?
Thank you very much, Damien, for the question. So what I also mentioned, so it's a fully cross-functional process, and it's not only finance who is driving, or I should say, this is what needs to be done. I think every function will have their reporting process, and that's also why we said, okay, we have a KPI definition, and then we go to a topic owner, and then also say what is possible, because we as finance say, okay, workday 3, you need to be done. But if, for example, in transport in our organization, that's not possible because they don't have the information, and then we need to also work with that. So that's also important, that it is not only finance who's saying this is what you need to do, but that it's also that we get that high-level assessment, but also the in-depth assessment with the people who are involved. Then it is part of the monthly cycle process. And yes, it's the same as in financials. If you don't have received your invoice, you make an accrual. But we also have an escalation process. We also have, what Omar mentioned, we have quality controls in place. So if, for example, a site is not reporting consumptions or more than 50% more than last month, there is a trigger in the system. There is a flag in the system. But if they do not report, then there is an escalation process that we have in place. And as also mentioned, they do not do this only for us as global finance. We need to have and live and breathe this amongst the teams, the other teams. What we're trying to avoid, if there is a new legal reporting requirement coming, we also look, okay, what is in for us? What can we do that we also have a benefit? And not only a reporting requirement, but how can we also make it working for us? And yes, if people do not deliver the information on time, I think in every organization you have then that escalation process or accrual process. And as what I said, we treat financials, non-financials as financials. So yeah, we would then follow the same.
Thanks, Marcel. And I think just related to, well, not related to that, but in terms of your phases that you mentioned, this is a very interesting one. You said phase 1 gets the decision on management bonuses. So what happened to the level of interest by management for the remaining phases? If you're able to share something around that.
So I'm not sure if you have seen, because I went through my slide very quickly, but we have now 4 pillars. So in the past we had 3, but now with our new strategy that is last year launched, strategy 2030, we also have a 4th pillar, green logistics of choice. So and that is covering the whole ESG reporting. So there was not less appetite to implement, because they also saw that it is working, that the information is available, and that is not only that it is target driven. Now they also want to do the performance review. They also would like to be better. They also like to compete with the others. So yeah, it was really interesting that the phase 1, there's no difference in the phase 2. There was even questions like, can we add more? Can we add more KPIs? Because I would like to have it, because it's in one tool now. So it's in one review process. So they also felt that there was benefit, or there is benefit, that you have your ESG KPIs in your management information system available. So yeah, that was an interesting move. But that's also the cultural and the culture and the change that you need to do, and you should not forget to have that impacted.
Thanks, Marcel. And I think, that highlights the importance of that again, in terms of the culture and change that we often find organizations overlooking, usually because of sort of time pressures as well. Omar, I'm going to come to you with a question, and it might be slightly different given the sort of context of the organization, but one of our questions is just around, we've heard a lot about cross collaboration, but how do you sort of define that model between sustainability functions and finance functions? So how's that set up to actually work when it comes to sustainability data and reporting?
Yeah, I think, and that's a very important question as well, just given there could be potential overlap in some of the functions and what we do. So what's worked for us is to develop a clear, so it's a RACI, roles, responsibilities, and so on. So develop a clear understanding of which team is responsible for what aspect. So for example, with our portfolio carbon footprint reporting, we've developed clear guidelines that say that our sustainable investing team is responsible for any questions around methodology or any updates to methodology. Finance is responsible for that measurement and tracking. And then when it comes to the review at the executive level, both, our chief, our main SMD of sustainability is looking at the portfolio carbon footprint metrics, but so is our CFO, right? So it's a matter of just clearly distinguishing roles and responsibilities. And that could look different for the different programs that we have in the organization, where perhaps in some programs, finance takes a bigger lead, and other programs, the sustainable investing team takes a bigger lead. So, and that's constantly shifting and changing as well. We're fortunate that we have a great relationship with our sustainable investing team. So we're often having those discussions. Particularly, there may be programs where the sustainable investing team today takes a bigger lead around measurement, but then, we're seeing those as longer term programs to transition into our team from a measurement perspective. So we're already having those discussions today in terms of ways in which finance can help the sustainable investing team take over some of those roles and responsibilities. And as we have those discussions, we just make sure that we're tracking those appropriately.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Marcel. Sadly, we have run out of time for our Q&A, but we've at least responded to the sort of burning questions we had on the channel. But no, really, thank you a lot. And we could clearly carry on chatting about this for a longer while. But thank you again for being willing to share your journeys in a very practical way. And I'm going to just hand back to Catherine now to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette. So today we've looked at refocusing management information and reporting to provide a more integrated approach and the role that the finance team can play. So integrating these factors has been shown to produce better decisions that are based on a broader understanding of how an organisation creates value, decisions which improve risk management, and decisions that support the achievement of the company's and organisation's strategic objectives that we've heard today. So if you're interested in finding out more on the topic, we have a range of A4S resources that are available to you. So those will be linked in the chat now. Yes, I can see them coming through. So as we come to the end of today's session, I'd just like to say another huge thank you for our speakers for their contributions, and thank you for the questions as well. They've been very interesting. So as we run similar webinars regularly, we are keen to get a bit of feedback to help us make these as useful as possible for you as our audience. Thank you so much for joining the discussion, and thank you once again to our guests, Marcel and Omar, for their really, really insightful sessions today. If you haven't already registered, we do have another webinar coming up at the end of March, so the 31st on CapEx, and we would very much look forward to seeing you at the next session. So thank you once again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.